On June 16, 1944, the state of South Carolina executed George Stinney Jr., a 14-year-old black boy, in the electric chair. He was the youngest person executed in the 20th century. This is African American History is American History. His trial lasted less than 3 hours. An all-white jury deliberated for approximately 10 minutes before finding him guilty, despite the absence of physical evidence connecting him to the crime. The state took his life less than 3 months after his arrest. This is how the system failed George Stinney Jr.
On March 23, 1944, 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. and his youngest sister were near their family's home in Alcolu, South Carolina, when 2 young white girls approached them. 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 8-year-old Mary Emma Thims were looking for flowers. They asked George and his sister where they might find some. It was a brief encounter. Later that day, the girls failed to return home. A search party was organized, and George joined the effort. He told a member of the search party that he had seen the girls earlier. The following morning, their bodies were discovered in a shallow, water-filled ditch. Because George had acknowledged seeing them, investigators quickly focused their attention on him. He was arrested and interrogated without his parents or an attorney present. The sheriff later claimed that George had confessed, but no written or signed confession was ever produced, and accounts of what George supposedly said differed. George's father was fired from his job, and threats forced the Stinney family to flee their home. When a white mob later gathered at the jail, George had already been transferred to another facility. On April 24, 1944, just 1 month after his arrest, George Stinney went on trial for his life. He faced an all-white jury. Black spectators were barred from the courtroom. His court-appointed attorney, a tax lawyer with political ambitions, called no witnesses in George's defense. The prosecution relied upon the sheriff's account of George's alleged confession as its only evidence directly connecting him to the murders. The trial lasted less than 3 hours. The jury deliberated for approximately 10 minutes. George was found guilty and sentenced to death that same day. His attorney filed no appeal. Despite pleas for clemency from civil rights organizations, churches, and concerned citizens, South Carolina Governor Olin Johnston refused to intervene. On June 16, 1944, less than 3 months after his arrest, George Stinney Jr. was executed in the electric chair. He remains the youngest person executed in the United States during the 20th century. 70 years later, South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Carmen T. Mullen reconsidered the case. During a 2-day hearing, the court heard testimony from 3 of George's surviving siblings, members of the original search party, and several experts. The state of South Carolina argued that, despite the serious deficiencies in the original proceedings, George's conviction should remain in place. The court disagreed. On December 16, 2014, Judge Mullen vacated the conviction.
It is the finding of this court that George Stinney was fundamentally deprived of due process throughout the proceedings against him, and that the alleged confession simply cannot be said to be known and voluntary. Unfortunately, the court-appointed attorney did little to nothing to defend George Stinney Jr., and therefore, his representation was the essence of being ineffective. I can think of no greater injustice.
This is African American History is American History.
George Junius Stinney Jr. was 14 years, 6 months, and 5 days old, the youngest person executed in 20th century America. He was sent to the electric chair without ever receiving due process. At the execution, George weighed approximately 90 pounds and stood just 5 feet 1 inch tall. According to the Equal Justice Initiative, officials placed a book, said to be the Bible he carried, into the death chamber on the electric chair seat, so the 14-year-old child could be secured in a chair built for adults. Let that sink in. The youngest person known to have been executed in American history was Hannah Ocuish, a 12-year-old Pequot girl. Nearly 160 years later, George Stinney Jr., a 14-year-old black boy, became the youngest person executed in the 20th century. Their cases unfolded generations apart, but together they leave us with an uncomfortable question about systemic injustice. When America's justice system fails to protect every child equally, when a system built by adults makes a grotesque physical accommodation simply to execute a child, how can race and power not be part of the story?
This has been African American History is American History.
I'm Garrett Walker.
I'm Harlan Kearsley, and on behalf of everyone involved with African American History is American History, thank you for listening.
Please like, comment, and subscribe to this program. A coordinated, multi-pronged campaign from conservative lawmakers and far-right groups is currently being pushed to restrict Black history from being taught in K-12 schools, universities, and public institutions. Educators, parents, and civil rights organizations are actively fighting back against this assault on learning. But we need everyone to support an accurate, comprehensive, and inclusive education. That's why we ask for your help in keeping history alive. If you value the work we do, please consider donating to our GoFundMe campaign. Your support enables us to continue producing educational content that inspires and informs future generations.
Thanks again, and please, stay safe. African American History is American History. Copyright H.C. Kearsley, 2026.